Hey there, Glenn Destruction returning with a new As I See It. Today we're looking at Jurassic World. So like my Jurassic Park 3 video, I'm once again asking a question. This time, how has Jurassic World aged in nearly a decade? Or, if you're watching this in the future after June 12, 2025, how has it aged in a decade? Let me start off by saying this. Getting Jurassic Park 4 felt like something that was going to take a lifetime. That lucrative film, it all felt like it was out of reach. After the release of Jurassic Park 3, the much anticipated Jurassic Park 4 went straight into developmental hell. The fact that we spent nearly 15 years without a Jurassic Park film is kinda insane. And for clarity, long story short, the film was aimed for a 2005 release, with William Monahan as the screenwriter. He would leave the project being replaced by John Sayles, and Joe Johnston was scheduled to be the director once again for this film. The movie had some really odd concepts, which I really don't know if personally I want to see on screen, which would have involved dinosaur-human hybrids, which could have played into the dangers of humans playing God. Part of me feels like this kind of movie would have been moving into Alien Resurrection territory. In the future though, I may go ahead and do a Jurassic Park 4 hypothetical, what if Jurassic World never happened. But this video is aimed towards Jurassic World, and I don't want to stray away from the topic at hand, and the original version of Jurassic Park 4 is just a lot to unpack that I'm not going to do here. The one thing I can say, however, is hybrid dinosaurs would be adapted into Jurassic World, so it does kind of linger a bit into this movie. The biggest difference here though is this idea of a hybrid dinosaur actually serves a purpose in the overall film, not just for the viewers witnessing something new on screen, but in the film's universe to pander to crowds as something new to Jurassic World. And that's where I'll go ahead and dig into the Indominus Rex, the new antagonist for this film. The Indominus is an example of a proper main antagonist in the Jurassic series. There's nothing wrong exactly with using something other than a T-Rex inherently. I wholeheartedly agree the Spinosaurus was depicted well in Jurassic Park 3. There was nothing wrong with the Spinosaurus killing the T-Rex in the first place. I just don't think fans were ready for such a sudden kill of a fan favorite dinosaur. It caused a ton of heat killing off the T-Rex, but it quickly established the fact the Spinosaurus would have a heavy presence on screen as the main antagonist. I'll admittedly say creating a brand new original dinosaur was something new for the series and could have went either way, but really though the idea of doing this does make it pretty unpredictable in contrast to our normal dinosaurs. Now one thing that I heavily applaud about this film is the fact the Indominus is heavily fleshed out from the very start of the film. From that very moment we see her hatch, it's established that she is raised in captivity with no contact of anything else. The one sibling she had, she killed early on. And species raised in captivity aren't exactly the most functional in the first place. So you can kind of imagine what this is going to do for the Indominus in the long run. So it does raise the question, how would the Indominus react when she is introduced to a new world? Should she escape? So everything about this species is brand new, and we're factoring in the fact that anything can happen as an audience watching this film. As you watch the movie, you begin to despise the actions of the Indominus Rex. Not exactly in the fashion as the viewer would, say, the Spinosaurus. You watch the Spinosaurus kill the T-Rex in a battle for dominance. The Indominus, on the other hand, kills a trail of Apatosauruses not to feed off, but just because it can. The Apatosaurus scene, that is actually one that I want to go ahead and just talk about for a quick moment. At this point in the Jurassic series, this is probably one of the first saddest scenes that we will see in the Jurassic Park series, right now, due to the fact the herd deserved none of this. It's at this moment where we realize how much a monster the Indominus is. We get personal and watch an Apatosaurus pass away while being comforted by Owen. It's clearly in pain, and as a viewer, you just want to see it out of its misery. Nonetheless, this is still a tear-jerking moment in the film. This was also an essential scene in terms of Claire Dearing's character development, from seeing the dinosaurs as simply just assets, but actually living beings, suffering from the mismanagement of Jurassic World and the handling of the Indominus. And this isn't the only scene where we see the Indominus on a rampage like a psychopath. We also have the attack on the Ankylosaurus, where it then redirects attention towards the gyrosphere, watching the bite happen headfirst as the Ankylosaurus screams in terror. It was heartbreaking because, as erratic as the Indominus was, you knew this little guy doesn't stand a chance. Damn them kid for being in the way of the Ankylosaurus' attack. And let me be clear about something else. This is entirely different than the time we saw the Gallimimuses get killed by the T-Rex. The Indominus is effectively just a monstrosity that combines a number of theropods' DNA with the genome of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. To top it off, this also includes DNA from modern animals, from cuttlefish, tree frogs, pit viper snakes, So this I view in two perspectives for this film. Number one, it serves as a purpose in the Jurassic Park lore, an attempt to raise profits for the park and attention. On the contrary, it doesn't appear that the attendance for Jurassic World is exactly failing from what we see in the movie. On top of that, it shows how far mankind is willing to go playing God. So one thing this film does a brilliant job at is illustrating the fact that nothing at Jurassic World is natural, including the dinosaurs themselves, which are far different from their past extinct counterparts. Given the fact the dinosaurs of Jurassic Park and World have filled-in genomes from modern animals, hence not being pure.
And if their genetic code was pure, many of them would look quite different, but you didn't ask for reality. You asked for more teeth.
I never asked for a monster.
And the fact that this is touched on is extremely important, given the fact that Jurassic Park has always had controversy from paleontologists due to the fact dinosaurs are scientifically inaccurate to reality. And by the time this movie came out, dinosaurs being depicted with feathers had been well accepted. With the exception of the raptors in Jurassic Park 3, much of this had been ignored. But the movie reminds us, yes, the dinosaurs in the film aren't meant to be depicted exactly like the real ones from our planet's history. Now looking at the cast for this film, Jurassic World goes ahead and just starts from scratch. With the exception of one actual actor that returns to this film, is pretty well entirely a new cast assembled. So we're leaving behind our legacy characters. Instead, we circle around Claire Dearing, played by Bryce Dallas Howard, who undergoes some crazy character development in these 3 movies she appears in. All of which I'll go ahead and highlight as my retrospective of the series goes on. But for starters, her character is a cliche, do as I'm told. Everything is in the name of business. But this idea pushes forward how blinded Jurassic World is by business decisions, believing as a whole that they can correct the flaw that was Jurassic Park. And they lack consideration for the dinosaurs. We also have Chris Pratt as Owen Grady, who serves as a raptor trainer, which plays a massive role in this film, as this film depicts the relationship between Grady and his 4 raptors, Blue, Charlie, Delta, and Echo. Owen Grady's character also ties in with Claire with the cliche movie trope of 2 individuals that once dated, somehow becoming re-entwined and form a relationship by the movie's end. And then we have Zach and Gray, which are essentially part of the Jurassic tradition, where we have kids in the film. Because this is what the Jurassic Park series has always pretty well done to give younger audiences something to identify with. Or somebody. Really, their entire connection is simply they're sent to Jurassic World to spend time with Aunt Claire, whom has Charlotte Pickles' workaholic mindset, and barely knows her nephews and sends them off with Zara to watch them, only for her to get indirectly killed in a wild overkill manner. Seriously, this is insane overkill. Look at this. She gets attacked by a pteranodon, dumped into water, grabbed again, and then our mosasaurus eats her in the pteranodon. Y'all want to see something haunting? Look and you'll see Zara attempting to crawl out of the mosasaurus' mouth, desperately. Also, let's consider the fact that these back teeth are gonna impale her while she's alive. What kind of settlement did her family get, I wonder? Now, unlike Jurassic Park 3, we have yet another human antagonist, being Vic Hoskins, who ties in with Dr. Henry Wu, who returns for the first time since the original Jurassic Park movie. However, here he has a much bigger role all throughout this trilogy. Between Henry Wu and Hoskins, a deal is made to weaponize the Indominus, which is a bizarre but actual plot point in this film that tries to introduce that dinosaurs could be used in military combat. And honestly, this concept feels like a page straight out of 6-year-old me's ideas. I honestly fail to see how any of this would have been of any use when you're just going to deploy some dinosaur in war, and it's going to get blown up or show a shred of fear when it hears artillery or helicopters. Ultimately, you end up siding with Owen Grady. And it does remind you that Owen doesn't just control the dinosaurs. Despite training them and working with the 4 raptors, they can still be unpredictable. He's never truly in control of the raptors when they still will act on instinct. One wrong move can spell a disaster. There's one aspect that I gotta go ahead and touch on, and it's where's the Tyrannosaurus at this point? With the exception of the Tyrannosaurus exhibit, which is blocked from our view, we really got nothing for the most part of this movie. All the focus is on the Indominus, our cast, and the raptors. But a bare minimum for the Tyrannosaurus Rex. As insane as the Indominus was, when I first saw this film in theaters, I had this lingering idea thinking, we may get the T-Rex facing the Indominus. And this would become conclusive by the movie's ending. Furthermore, this is the one legacy character that we really wanted to see make a grand return. It's just downright epic, knowing this isn't any other T-Rex, but it's Rexy. She's alive and well after 20 plus years later, crashing through the bones of a Spinosaurus, which had to be loved by anyone that had an extreme disdain for the Spinosaurus. But my real paranoia as a viewer is, are we gonna do this again? Really, is it a possibility? Like, this movie played with my heart. It's one thing watching a random T-Rex get murdered in Jurassic Park 3, but not Rexy. Ultimately, everything comes together when we watch Blue, Rexy, and the Mosasaurus band together and destroy the Indominus. It's a satisfying ending to watch the park problem become solved, and watch the dinosaurs take over yet another fallen park. As a film, Jurassic World is really just an extension of what John Hammond's curse was.
We're over-dependent on automation, I can see that now. Now the next time, everything's correctable.
We can do this, we can have control, and every aspect of Jurassic World is clouded by the blind leading the blind. In fact, this movie comprises of several errors that lead to larger errors, and the mistakes just add up, such as calling in to get the location of the Indominus. I'm just gonna jump in my car and call you, and for some reason we have to go into the closure and inspect things. The emergency gate is just large enough for the Indominus to rush out of. Let's consider the following. At least in Jurassic Park, Dennis Nedry sabotaged the park's power in a severe storm struck. The dinosaurs found a way to breed and exist. But here, on the other hand, it's just terrible mistakes one after another, and a business wishing to not kill the Indominus because they've invested so much money in it, and it must be captured alive. Eventually, by the time live ammunition is brought into play, it's far too late and chaos begins, breaking out everywhere. Now, in a sense, I do like to describe this movie as having Star Wars Force Awakens syndrome. Let me explain what I mean. Rather than applying a brand new plot, we're gonna rehash the classic, make a slight change, but not too much, enough to show the audience something they're familiar with, but with a new paint job. And that is exactly what Jurassic World is. Except here, the park opens up to the public. So we can break this film down in two perspectives. For Universal Pictures, this film was a complete financial success. In fact, it once peaked as the third highest grossing film of all time, just under Avatar and Titanic before being thrown to fourth place when Star Wars Force Awakens opened up in theaters. Predominantly, it's loved by fans. However, there are some fans that do argue this film did kind of dumb down and nerf the T-Rex and the Raptors, because neither species has been exactly terrifying since then, and this film does tend to utilize more comedic relief than the previous three movies in the original trilogy had ever used. I believe a lot of the success of Jurassic World can be contributed to one major thing, and that's the fact that fans were ready to return back after nearly 15 years to Jurassic Park and see a new film. Yeah, it's a bit more lighthearted in places because the Raptors and Rexy are converted into protagonists, thus stripping the fear factor away when they appear on screen. I can't say that I ever found the Indominus to be unsettling, or nearly comparable to when I saw the T-Rex and Raptors in the original one back in the 90s. Granted, I was a kid then. But in the original one, what really made the Raptors something terrifying, it was the Raptors' intelligence that made them such a nightmare. Even before they broke out, they were testing the fences. Here on the other hand, the Raptors just feel more domesticated. And yes, this movie does remind the viewers that the Raptors can't be controlled, even giving us a scene where the Raptors turn and attack. But really overall, this scene comes and goes so fast. It never actually allows any actual fear factor to kick in for the audiences watching, especially when it's more action orientated. Often when I look at Jurassic World and compare it to its three predecessors, I believe this movie tries to sell itself as being created from the same cloth as the first three, but it's entirely different. Look at it this way, it's a Tyrannosaur, but it's not specifically the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Now when I talk about the negatives, I'm not saying this is a bad movie either, I still love it, it's aged finely over the years. Walking out of the theaters in 2015, I remember how excited I was, thinking in this movie, talking to my friends, family, and coworkers, waiting for this movie to come out on Blu-ray and DVD. Nearly 10 years later, it's aged so well, and I don't even hate the cast. I mean, maybe I dislike Zach and Gray, but it's nothing that I have a huge disdain for. It's just, I'll admit that Jurassic World does lack some creativity in the long run for this series. It's nostalgic and it winks to the past. I do find the scene where Zach and Gray return to the site of the original park to be such a subtle highlight. It reminds us of where it all began. And it was such a great idea to return to Site A, after two films which took place on Site B. It's just overall the largest missing puzzle piece is this film does not have any real Michael Crichton message. Now maybe one could defend it by saying that maybe this was being saved for the end of the Jurassic World trilogy, which does remind me of a key component difference between Jurassic Park and World. Given that Jurassic Park was a film adaptation of a critically acclaimed novel released in the early 90s, Jurassic World was done with the intent and purpose of rebooting the Jurassic Park series, and it was suggested by Steven Spielberg the film must return to the theme park concept, raptors being trained, and a plot revolving around a dinosaur running loose, all of which came to fruition and birthed this film. So now we gotta talk about the beautiful soundtrack for this film, which full credit goes to Michael Giacchino. who had been most known for video games, and guess what? Everything felt poetic here, because of the fact that he was actually responsible for Warpath Jurassic Park and the Lost World Jurassic Park console video game. And I feel like his work transitions well, with some frantic, calming, musical compositions throughout the film. Let's go ahead and sample real quick. And let's not forget the fact this movie has John Williams' classic score in the film. But there's one moment that really sticks out to me. It had me giddy, in tears of joy, was this track. A wink towards the Lost World Jurassic Park, which was beautifully placed in this movie. In fact, this is probably the only reference that we actually see for the Lost World Jurassic Park. As chaotic as Jurassic World is, it's a fun, play-it-safe fan service film. I'm not saying it pleased everyone, no, by no means, but it got viewers in the mood to return back to the theaters for more dinosaurs on the big screen, and brought in new fans that maybe weren't even born when the original trilogy came out. Now, one little nitpick I do have about this film, and it's the fact that I do wish this film utilized more practical effects over CGI. It's not to say that practical effects aren't in the film, because they are there, it's just that it's very reliant off CGI, which was the norm by the time 2015 came around. A different era of filmmaking techniques versus the original one, which was experimenting with new, groundbreaking CGI. And this pretty well sums up my take on Jurassic World. It has a welcome place in the fandom nearly a decade later. I think the real shame is the sheer fact that any Jurassic Park movie after Jurassic World just didn't even match the energy of even Lost World or JP3. But in another time, I'll go ahead and talk about Fallen Kingdom, because next, I'm gonna go ahead and move attention to GXK. Yes, Godzilla fans, it's been a long while since I've done a Godzilla movie review, but we got two that we gotta go ahead and dive into. And sound off in the comment section if you want to see me dive into the unmade Jurassic Park 4. Thanks for your time, like, subscribe, and check out my toy reviews if you wish, and have a great day.